pray for America, because no one's watching the store. At least no one you voted for is watching the store. So after the election, all the stories come out now, right, that are inconvenient to the establishment. Last week, we talked about how the Department of Justice Inspector General released a report documenting 26 confidential human sources of the FBI operators, agents, not literally agents, but they're operators and employees, typically of the FBI, meaning they often get paid, were at the Capitol on January 6th. 4 of which entered the Capitol. So that story was sat on by the corrupt Justice Department and the corrupt Inspector General's office until after the election, because it would have been helpful to President Trump if that information had come out. And it would not only have been helpful to him politically, but legally, because of the targeting of Trump on his alleged involvement, even though there was no involvement in the rioting by Trump. But that IG report showed that there were folks who could have been prosecuted by the Justice Department who were actually working for the FBI as confidential human sources. And yet they're going after Trump but letting these FBI guys off? No wonder they held it until after the election. Well, we have something else that was held till after the election. And it's an admission through a story in the Wall Street Journal about how President Biden has been completely out of it mentally since the moment he got into office, and how our government's been essentially run by White House aides and advisors. And to me, that only scratches the surface, because we know those White House aides and advisors don't operate in a vacuum. They're talking to someone for direction and collaboration in how to proceed, and you can guess who I think that is. But the story's pretty incredible, and I think it should be the basis for a series. Certainly Judicial Watch will investigate it as it's able to, as we're able to do. But if Congress has any competence, they will investigate what went on here too. It says essentially that he wasn't even meeting with his cabinet. He wasn't meeting with key cabinet officials. He wasn't meeting with key members of Congress. Aides were doing the bit work of the President of the United States. So you vote for a president and then he's completely AWOL because of a mental incapacity? I don't know about you, but that's like one of the worst corruption scandals in the modern era, on top of all these other corruption scandals. I got some select excerpts. I went through it. So it started, by the way, when he was running for president. He couldn't even handle the first campaign for president. The president's slide had been hard to overlook. While preparing last year for his interview with Robert Hur, the special counsel who investigated Biden's handling classified documents, the president couldn't recall lines that his team discussed with him. At events, aides often repeated instructions to him, such as where to enter or exit a stage, and issues that would be obvious to the average person. Biden's team tapped campaign co-chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg, a Hollywood mogul, to find a voice coach to improve the president's fading warble. A sign that the bruising presidential schedule needed to be adjusted for Biden's advanced age had risen early on, in just the first few months of his term. Administration officials noticed that the president became tired if the meetings went long and would make mistakes. They issued a directive to some powerful lawmakers and allies seeking one-on-one time. The exchanges should be short and focused, according to people who received the message directly from White House aides. Ideally, the meetings would start later in the day, since Biden had never been at his best first in the morning, some of the people said. His staff made these adjustments to limit potential missteps by Biden. If the president was having an off day, meetings could be scrapped off altogether. In the spring of 2021, a national security official explained to another aide why a meeting had to be rescheduled. He has good days and bad days, and today was a bad day, so we're going to address this tomorrow. Our President of the United States was incapacitated. That's what the story shows. And unable to function as President of the United States, as Commander-in-Chief. You know, when the courts talk about the president's powers as under the Constitution, they note those powers are at its apex when he operates as Commander-in-Chief. It's kind of a further confirmation that it's arguably the most important thing the president does, the life or death decision making he's required to make as Commander-in-Chief, and he was unable to do so for 4 years from the beginning of the administration, at least according to this story. Now, through the story, the Biden gang pretends that, all the reporting's wrong and it's not persuasive at all. And this is a particular troubling instance of it. Congressman Adam Smith tried to share his concerns about the Afghanistan withdrawal prior to it happening. Now, Smith is, or was, the chair of the Armed Services Committee, so he's a powerful Democrat on the defense side. Of course, first of all, Smith never told anyone else about this until it was too late, so I'm not taking his side on it. But the fact is, he was trying to talk to Biden, and they wouldn't let him talk to him. And then, of course, the surrender in Afghanistan happened. 13 Americans were killed, countless others injured, thanks to Joe Biden's surrender to the Taliban, the worst defeat in American history. You'd have to go back to the War of 1812 to find something comparable. And then finally, Biden calls him after the fact. I mean, that's how restricted Biden's access to key people were. Imagine the chairman of powerful Democrat committees not being able to talk to their party's president. What else did I pull out here that was outrageous? Treasury Secretary. You know, it's like the Secretary of Defense, the Treasury Secretary, the Secretary of State. Those are kind of core cabinet officials. Those are the most here in D.C., and I think constitutionally speaking, they're the most significant cabinet agencies. The Treasury, Department of Defense, Department of State. Treasury Secretary Yellen had an arm's-length relationship with the president for much of the administration. The Treasury Secretary having an arm's-length relationship with the president? No wonder our economy went into the pot. I don't even know if that's the right metaphor, but you know what I mean. She was part of the economics team that regularly briefed the president, but one-on-one discussions were more rare, and she typically dealt with the National Economic Council or with the president's advisors rather than Biden directly. So another way to read this is that, you know, the Yellen was basically the president for her area, the Treasury. She wasn't receiving direction from the president by this account. In the fall 2023, and this comes back to a Judicial Watch issue, and I'll talk to you about that. In the fall of 2023, Biden faced a major test when the special counsel, wanted to interview him. The president wanted to do it, and his top aides fed his willingness to sit down with investigators set up a favorable contrast with Trump. The prep sessions took about 3 hours a day. During these sessions, Biden's energy levels were up and down. He couldn't recall lines that his team had previously discussed with him, so that he couldn't follow the testimony they were feeding him, which raises other legal issues. A White House official pushed back on the notion that Biden's age showed in prep, saying the concerns that arose during those sessions were related to Biden's tendency to overshare. Well, that's a nice way of describing someone who's completely out of it and says things that are irrelevant. The actual interview didn't go well. And of course, famously, Her found him to be a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. And to this day, they're hiding the audio of that interview from us because I guarantee you it shows quite dramatically in an audio way President Biden's inability to function. So this story is devastating, and it's devastating in a number of ways. And it goes on to talk about how donors were surprised at Biden's behavior. They were given cards to read. They couldn't even ask normal questions. They had to read questions from a card, and even then, Biden was unable to answer them. So the corruption here is kind of broad, right? You had the media involved with this. You had government officials at the highest levels covering up for Biden's inability to function. And you had Republicans refusing to do their duties under the Constitution to protect the nation and our national security from the risk entailed to having a commander-in-chief who's dysfunctional, physically, mentally unable to perform the duties entrusted to him by the American people, over which lives are riding. And you may recall, I was calling on the Republicans to do something about the 25th Amendment, begin the process of investigating this. Now, I'm sure, maybe they'll do hearings about it now. Maybe they'll ask what happened. Why wasn't Trump, why didn't the vice president and the cabinet take steps to find him incapable under the 25th Amendment? But this is a scandal for the ages again, where we've had a president unable to perform his duties for 4 years, and the corrupt political class here in Washington, D.C. refused to do anything about it. Attacked those who raised questions about it. Attacked American citizens who could see his dysfunction. And finally, when it became inconvenient or useful to them, they admitted, oh, well, maybe he can't be president anymore, or at least can't run for president anymore. And yet for months now, we've had this admission he's not able to function to be a candidate, but he's able to function to be a president. Now, is it too late to institute the 25th Amendment? Technically, no. Practically, probably yes. But pray for America, because no one's watching the store. At least no one you voted for is watching the store. So this is a scandal because of the danger it put the United States in, and I think we recognize that danger because we see the consequences of it in Afghanistan, in Russia with the invasion of Ukraine. You don't think the calculation of Biden being out of it has a national security implication? It invites aventurism by our enemies. It invites violence. It invites attacks on America. And it invites a weakening of America's ability to influence others, or it results in that. And that's why we've had a more aggressive China. That's why we've had the invasion of Ukraine, I'm convinced. And plus, of course, the Chinese adventurism and aggressive behavior, and Putin's aggressive behavior, I think, is also in part due to Biden's personal corruption issues with both countries. The Biden family was on the take from both countries. So it's corruption related to his mental incapacity and corruption related to his family. What a mess. What a mess. And so we've been in litigation on all of these issues, and Congress has been out to lunch on much of it. They didn't even want to impeach him. We didn't even get the leadership in place to impeach him. That's how weak the opposition in this country was to the craven opportunists and power mongers running the Biden administration. because these are folks who are exercising powers no one gave them because the president was dysfunctional. I don't know. You know, this is what I love about our ability to give this report to you, because no one else is going to talk about it the way we do, right? Or at length. You know, you get commentators talking about it in passing and comments on social media, which is all well and good because many Americans wouldn't know about it but for social media these days. So thankfully we can have other ways of reaching out. But this is a major scandal. I mean, just like the coup against Biden was a major scandal. I mean, 15 million votes erased, and we're supposed to pretend it's normal. It's not normal. And there may be significant legal and constitutional issues about what went on in the 2024 election. So as far as I'm concerned, we've got 2 elections to investigate. I know Trump's interested, or his people should be, in what happened in 2020. Heck, they're trying to jail him over it, or were, still are. But the 2024 election, how Kamala became the nominee, I think there are legal issues there. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.